video is going to take you through the formation of floodplains and levees. Floodplains and levees occur in a river's lower course. Here is a diagram of the long profile of a river. The mouth is where the river enters the sea. The source is the start of the river. The source is high above sea level. The mouth is at sea level. We can divide the river up into three sections: the upper course, the middle course and the lower course. In the lower course, the land surrounding the river is relatively flat. In the middle course, the river flows in a U-shaped valley, and it meanders through the bottom of that U-shaped valley. In the upper course, the river flows in an upland or hilly area. In the lower course, the flat land around the river is called the floodplain. Now, it's called a floodplain because it is an area of land that regularly floods. A flood is when a river is carrying so much water that the water overflows or bursts the banks and flows into the surrounding land. Rivers carry things, they transport their load. And the load comes in different sizes. We can also say that rivers transport sediment. Sediment means bits of eroded material. So things that the river has broken away from the river banks and the riverbed. Small rocks and silt, which is very, very, very small bits of rock. Now, when the river floods, it loses energy. Here, when the river is flowing in its river channel, the channel is quite deep, so there isn't a lot of friction between the water and the channel. However, once the river flows onto land, it becomes more shallow. Therefore, there is more friction between the water and the land. This causes the speed of the river, or the river's velocity, to decrease. When a river loses speed, or when a river's velocity decreases, a river deposits sediment. So it drops the things that it's carrying. When a river floods, what kind of sediment, what size of sediment do you think the river deposits first? Large or small? Tell your screen. If you said small, well done. Not small. If you said large, well done. The river's going to drop the largest sediment first, isn't it? Because that takes the most energy. Whereas carrying the smallest sediment, like silt, takes less energy. So that is carried further away from the river. Over time, after repeated flooding, larger sediment continues to be deposited close to the banks of the river. Whereas the finer, the smaller sediment is deposited across the floodplain further away from the river. Eventually, what happens is we get mounds either side of the river channel, made up of that heavy sediment, that are called levees. And the floodplain is formed out of the layer of silt that is deposited further away from the river. The floodplain is very fertile because the silt contains a lot of nutrients that help plants grow. So often the floodplain is used for farming. And the levees can also be useful because they increase the amount of water that a river can carry, and therefore mean that the river is less likely to flood. That doesn't mean the river doesn't flood, the river can still overflow the levees, but it becomes less likely to flood, it will flood less often.